Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar. We're going to wait 1 or 2 minutes before to start. Thank you for joining. Hi everyone, just few seconds before we start, waiting for people to join. Thank you for spending a little bit of your afternoon or morning or evening, according where you are with us, to speak about artificial intelligence and children's rights. Everyone is joining slowly, so we're going to wait 1 minute more, a little bit less than that, and we're going to start. Welcome. For two, let's start this webinar. Hi everyone, and welcome to this session on legal aid and for children and artificial intelligence. I'm Cedric Foussard. I'm the coordinator of the Global Initiative on Justice with Children, which is co-led by Terre des Hommes Foundation. We got a short but insightful 50 minutes, around 50 minutes session ahead, where we'll dive into both the challenge and the exciting opportunities around the use of artificial intelligence in child justice. So this is actually our third webinar on digital justice for children, which are part of this project, the I Access My Right project that perhaps you have heard of, which is being managed by my dear colleague Dora Kiss, who is in this video too. So during the first webinar a few months ago, we explored technology and AI in child justice system, the implication for children human rights, with two amazing academics from Strathclyde University and from Ghent University, and we focus on that very interesting topic on the use of biometric recognition in child justice. In the second webinar, in last May, we tackled the EU AI Act, the first international multinational norm on the use of AI and the consequence of the act on children's rights, with a focus on the work around the creation of chatbot for children. And we rely on the intervention of Cork, a representative from Cork University in Ireland, and KU Leuven in Belgium. So before to start to dig about this new webinar in the context of the use of artificial intelligence and legal aid, I wanted to give you the floor, Dora, perhaps to give us a little bit more information about this project, the I Access My Right project, and perhaps tell us a little bit more about the updates of the project.
Thank you, Cedric. Yes, so those of you who don't know the project, the iAccess project is about developing an AI-driven chatbot to children in contact with the law to learn about their rights when they encounter cases of abuse or they are involved in the criminal justice system. And unfortunately, we are slowly approaching the end of the project, but that also means that the chatbot is almost ready. So currently it is being tested in Romania, Greece, and Bulgaria with children themselves. So they give us a lot of information, whether they find the tool useful. They give us some information about how it looks like, whether it's up to their standards. Do they want it to look more aesthetically pleasing? And any other recommendation on the tool's functionalities. And once we do a round of iteration based on these comments, we will launch the final product. And this will be followed by a series of local events in Bulgaria, Greece, and Romania to disseminate this tool and to introduce it to various stakeholders in the criminal justice system and the child protection system, to disseminate it among children and to ensure that it's being widely used. On the other hand, we've been launching several publications and resources. For example, a glossary on AI for child justice and child protection practitioners. You can find the link in the chat. We will put all of the links of these resources in the chat. We've also published a legal and ethical study on guiding the implementation of this project and the development of this chatbot to ensure that we are aligned with all the child rights consideration and legal frameworks, as well as the ethical considerations of AI, as well as the newly introduced AI Act. Indeed, we will also launch in the upcoming week a study on the potential and limitations of AI chatbots in the child protection and child justice context. This document reflects on different considerations than the legal and ethical one, mostly like the evolving needs of children and their evolving capacities, how this might be impacted by them interacting with chatbot instead of going straight to human support practitioners. What are the limitations of deploying certain tools in the justice and protection context? And we are also starting to organize the Project Final Conference, which will take place in Bulgaria this November. And actually, we have still a few spots left. So if you are interested, please feel free to contact us because we might find a place for you to attend. The conference will be a very groundbreaking event, we think so, but we probably are a bit biased on this. We will cover a lot of things regarding this new area, which is deploying digital solutions within the justice system. What are the ethical considerations that we need to take into account? What are the limitations? Where do we need to say that stop, this is not something for technology to tackle, this is for human practitioners. And we will also give you the space to interact with the child advisory boards that we've been working with during the project to help us design this tool and to help us child-proof it, basically. And I think these are the main deliverables and milestones that are still coming up in the project. So I'm handing back to Cedric to introduce our great speakers who we have here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dora. This is such an interesting project, actually, and with so many ethical consideration about the creation of a chatbot and use of the chatbot by children. And it's true, we've been learning a lot in working on this project. And perhaps an element to add, Dora, is that in 2025, the project will be as well, and the result of the project will be presented in another milestone event, which is the World Congress on Justice with Children, which will take place in Madrid, but internationally as well, online and in different areas through satellite event. And which will focus on the question of child-centered justice and new challenges such as digital justice and the use of artificial intelligence, for instance. But so, as you say, it's time to present you our dearest speaker. We have today three fantastic experts, people we've been working with in the past through the organization or more personally, and it's a real pleasure to have you on board today. So we have Wendy O'Brien. Wendy, she worked for UNODC, the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime. Wendy, she's focusing on human rights-based criminal justice reform, but she got this specific work and interest on focus on technology and human rights. And Wendy is as well an academic from Deakin University in Australia. We have as well Paulo Fadigas. Paulo is coming from Brazil. Thank you for coming, Paolo. Paolo is actually a judge in Brazil since 1995, and since 2009, judge in a juvenile court. But a part of that is as well member of the Artificial Intelligence Commission of the Sao Paulo Magistrate Association. So yeah, Paolo will have a lot to say from the Brazilian perspective. And then we have Angela Virgil. She is the executive director of the pro bono practice at Baker McKenzie, an international law firm. But she's been working all her life on defending children as a lawyer or as director of the pro bono practice. So it will be nice to speak with you, Angela. But before you, Angela and Paola, I wanted to give you perhaps the floor, Wendy, to remind us the international norms, recommendation around child justice, and all that interconnected with the current question around the use of artificial intelligence in this new concept that we are working on at the moment of digital justice. Wendy, if you want to tell us a little bit more about that.
Thank you so much, Cedric, and thank you for the invitation to join this really important discussion. I think it's not a simple discussion. It's not simple to do this in 50 minutes, but I'm looking forward to chatting. I think, we're in a particular moment globally where there is considerable enthusiasm for technology, what it can do in addressing social issues, economic issues, the efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and so on. And this is both an exciting time and a time, I think, in which we need to take stock to reflect on what works for whom and in what circumstances. Because we're not operating in a vacuum when we contemplate a question as really profound as what role can AI play in the delivery of legal aid services for children. This is a huge question, I think. And we're not operating in a vacuum. I would say that it's really important that every aspect of our consideration of a question like this is anchored to the international legal framework. So what I wanted to do is just highlight the key areas of the international legal framework that are relevant to this question. This will encompass questions around access to justice and the right to legal assistance, the evolving international legal framework around artificial intelligence and the use of new technologies, and specifically in the criminal justice system, but also children's rights in the justice system, and children's rights in the digital age, and children's rights in the justice system in the digital age. So there is a lot, we would be here for days if we wanted to cover all of this comprehensively. But I would start with a reminder of the provisions that there is an obligation on states to provide legal assistance to all persons, not only for children. This is enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which guarantees the supports necessary for the defence of anyone charged with a penal offence. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which refers to the right of an individual to defend himself or herself in person through legal assistance of their own choosing. I would also draw attention to the 2012 United Nations Principles and Guidelines on Access to Legal Aid in Criminal Justice Systems, adopted by the General Assembly, which makes it an obligation for member states to put in place accessible, effective, sustainable, and credible legal aid systems. And specifically, there are special measures there to ensure meaningful access for children. Principle 11 of that document stipulates that in all decisions affecting children, the best interests of the child should be the primary consideration, consistent, of course, with the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And there is a specific section in that document, I think it's Guideline 10, that refers to provisions for children. So this is really quite detailed guidance that's provided there. The Convention on the Rights of the Child, of course, recognises the importance of appropriate legal protection for children. This is recognised in the preamble, and then in Articles 37 and 40, there is language that specifies the rights for children that are in conflict with the law to have prompt access to legal and other appropriate assistance. And authoritative guidance on the elaboration of these rights is found in Rule 15 of the United Nations Standard Minimum Rules for the Administration of Justice, the Beijing Rules, which provide that children have the right to be represented by a legal advisor or to apply for free legal aid where there's provision for such in the country. So there's no question that the international legal framework establishes child's right to legal assistance. And while the instruments that I've mentioned here don't make specific reference to the digital age or artificial intelligence due largely to the date of their adoption, there is, of course, continuous and authoritative guidance that is provided for the interpretation of these instruments in the digital age. We do see recognition in General Assembly resolutions, for example, that human rights apply online and offline. We also see in General Comment 25 of the Committee on the Rights of the Child authoritative guidance on how to interpret the CRC in the digital age. In Section B of General Comment 25, there is a series of safeguards elaborated relating to the administration of child justice in the digital age, including, and I think this is where I'm going with this, including that digital technologies used in justice systems do not violate children's rights, including their rights to privacy, dignity, freedom of association. Important to note also that General Comment 25 provides that children should be provided with legal and other appropriate assistance in instances where their rights have been violated in the digital environment. So General Comment 25 conceptualizes that their rights can also be violated in the digital environment through the use of digital technologies in justice systems. But it is here that I come to the third body of law, and this is the evolving international recognition of the importance of harnessing the benefits of digital technologies in the administration of criminal justice while safeguarding against risks. We see language of this kind in the Kyoto Declaration. We see this in successive General Assembly resolutions, including resolutions on human rights in the administration of justice, and in the first global resolution on artificial intelligence adopted by the General Assembly in March of this year. So perhaps I can say something more specific about AI during the question time if there's time for that. But for now, I'd like to say that, in reflecting on the international legal and normative framework that relates to the rights to legal assistance, children's rights, and the emerging consensus internationally about the need to harness the benefits of technology for all while mitigating risks, I would say that the deployment of AI in the delivery of legal aid for children is a use case that engages a number of very complex technological, legal, procedural, and human rights considerations. And I know that you are mindful of all of this, and that's why you've organised this fantastic webinar series. It's an area that warrants the application of the precautionary principle and a fundamental commitment to do no harm. This, at a minimum, involves child rights by design, with children fully involved in that process, rigorous governance, stringent and continuous evaluation, enduring and equitable scaffolding by fully trained specialised child justice professionals, consistent with the CRC, and ensuring that any AI services are offered to children rather than mandated or provided as a default option, and that this is via an opt-in policy that ensures that the child's engagement is based on full, free and continuous and informed consent. But in the interest of time, I'll leave my remarks there for now. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you very much, Wendy. And it's interesting, as you remind us, that we all have this tendency on finding positive this concept of techno-solutionism. No, technology will find the solution of everything. And you clearly remind us that children's rights apply in every context, even in the digital one. The question is how we can make that more concrete and above all to ensure that rights of children are fully respected in this digital era. But perhaps we can get some some more precise context from the example of Brazil and Paulo. That will be very interesting to see from your experience and from being part of this commission about artificial intelligence, where Brazil is developing the use of artificial intelligence in the child justice system, and what are your main issues, and as well, positive perspective.
Okay, and first of all, good morning or good afternoon to everybody. I am a judge in a special court for children and teenagers and refugee seekers. And nowadays, I'm in a commission of artificial intelligence. And I ask for my video presentation, then I will answer the question. Okay, please.
First of all, I'd like to apologize for my English. I only learned English a few years ago and I'm really not fluent enough. Therefore, I will use an artificial intelligence tool to speak. It would appear that there is still a lack of awareness among legal experts and other children's protection agents in Brazil of the potential applications of artificial intelligence in the context of juvenile justice. Here, in Brazil, unlike in most other countries, judges issue protective orders for children in vulnerable situations. Furthermore, there seems to be a perception among some that AI will replace human decision-making. However, it is important to understand what AI actually is. Artificial intelligence is a field of computer science that employs sophisticated algorithms, which can be adapted by programs. In turn, they learn by analyzing data sets. This learning process initially involved a high level of human supervision, but over time, it has become less dependent on such input. It might be said that today, thanks to GPT, generative AI, which is an AI that creates new content, is becoming increasingly popular. This brief introduction was necessary to highlight the main challenges we face in caring for children in a very unequal country, with high rates of poverty, poor housing and violence, but also with a high level of informatization at all levels of government, including all courts, where paper is not used and hearings are held by video conference. It would be beneficial to consider ways of protecting the data of children, who may be more inclined to openly disclose it on social networks due to their relative immaturity and wide access to the internet through the use of modern mobile phones. It is possible that this data could be mined by criminals for illicit uses involving AI. The second class of challenge is child pornography or pedophilia over the internet. Pedophiles can easily obtain images and videos of naked children and teenagers, or of sexual content, often requested by pedophiles posing as children or teenagers using AI. At the same time, AI has the potential to help us overcome these challenges in 3 different areas. In law enforcement, AI programs have the potential to track the use of images and videos of child pornography on the internet and identify individuals involved in such activities. As the modus operandi of criminals does not vary much, it may also be possible to identify patterns of behavior in criminal proceedings that could indicate whether or not human trafficking for sexual exploitation has taken place. In terms of safeguarding victims, AI-based programs have the potential to identify which groups of people may be particularly vulnerable. Given the high level of government computerization, it may be possible to compile statistics on where most physical and psychological violence against children occurs, and to identify which places and groups of people should receive greater protection. With regard to prevention, AI-based programs have the potential to generate images and videos that could serve as an effective and timely means of alerting parents and children to the dangers of pedophilia. Additionally, they could assist in monitoring the use of mobile phones, providing parents with insight into their children's whereabouts.
Okay, and I'm back. Okay. So the answer is we have two class of problems. Problems of which country and of a poor country. And unfortunately, Brazil is very fast in some wrong sides of the technology, because we tables and about we are a very big country, very stand, a lot of people, but we have a lot of good people to deal with new technologies. As you, not me, I am not so good as you can see, but I tried to understand and help everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paolo. And actually, your presentation scared me, because I'm seeing that for the next webinar, it will not be me presenting, it will be my avatar. So, you know, we're becoming redundant, but thank you. I mean, what is interesting in your presentation, and I think it's the point as well, from your perspective and from the enforcement perspective, is that with AI, it's true that it gives a lot of tools to facilitate the work of police investigation, to track criminal, etc. So there is clearly for the public security, there is clearly interest in using AI, which is echoes with the presentation from Wendy before, where we need to adjust those advantages with as well the respect of human rights, of course. So that was very interesting, Paolo. Perhaps now what will be interesting is to know what we can do with young people themselves, right? And then how can young people can beneficiate from the use of AI? So perhaps Angela, you've been working with young person all your life, and then you saw the evolution of the justice system from the COVID and after, about the use of virtual courts, and now the use of other way to produce a sentence to support the work of the lawyers, etc. So perhaps from your perspective, will it be interesting, from the lawyer perspective, will it be interesting to see where you see the advantage and the inconvenient?
I appreciate the question, because I am, like so many of us in the child rights space, really excited about this topic. The concerns that Wendy outlined and that the judge have outlined are certainly out there, right? New technologies can always be abused. And AI, specifically generative AI, is no exception. But for the folks that are listening to this webinar, and we invite you to listen and participate if you want to put questions in the chat, if you're working with young people, you are finding much greater a fever for wanting to be involved in the AI world, and to use it, and to use it like young people use the internet, which is a quick download of the information they need as they need it. And perhaps less concerns, because of what we know about children's development and brain development in particular, less concerns about the long-term implications, and more about what do I need right now, right? Immediate gratification isn't fast enough. But it's an embracing of this technology by young people. And I think as a child rights community, as a child justice community, it's incumbent upon all of us to think about this as an opportunity, and to not let our fears of the new and the dangerous keep us from participating. General headline, not to let it keep us from participating. But as the judge outlined for us, generative AI is the thing that we are really grappling with the implications of. So to back up for 1 second and remind folks that AI, just artificial intelligence, has been with us for a long time. I think it's been in movies for 25 years, but it's also been in activity for a long time, because when we say just AI generally, we're talking about rules-based AI, right? So someone generating symbols to automate an application, and that includes search engines, things we've all been using for a really long time. So that AI, artificial intelligence, is identifying what we want by watching clues and the rules we've given it, not making things new that didn't exist before. And then in the middle, between rules-based AI and generative AI, we had a long world of machine learning. And that's a term that we hear out of technology companies a lot, because machine learning was the first technology that really started to make predictions based on the data that you've put into it, right? So machine learning was what we read about machines beating people at games because they could predict things based on past activity. They're not making up new things. They're making predictions based on past activity. But generative AI, what we're really focused on, I think, today and maybe in this webinar, actually allows machines to learn how to create new information. And that's what tends to frighten us, because as we are protectors of children, we're concerned about being able to create information that will that people will fall for, that young people will fall for. And I think the big lesson from my angle is we have to figure out a way to use those tools and benefit from them and not let it scare us away from getting involved at all. And honestly, the legal world, especially in the private commercial space, which is, I'm a pro bono counsel inside a giant business law firm, so I get to watch what's going on in the business world. They've been using AI really productively, very quickly for a while now, to go through thousands of documents, to analyze large amounts of data, to draft contracts, to tailor marketing and fundraising and all these sort of business purposes. And through that, we've learned there's sort of 3 areas of challenge, right? AI can be biased based on what it's learning. AI can be inaccurate based on what it's seeing and trying to make based on what it sees. And that's where we get this term hallucination that the Justice with Children and iAccess folks have explained really well in the paper on and the glossary on AI tools. Hallucination is a personification, right? And the machines aren't people. They're not making things up. They are creating information based on content that might be creating the wrong information because it looked at the wrong content. And so that's what we call these hallucinations. And then finally, privacy. And I think maybe the reason that in the child rights space, we're really concerned about new AI is because we haven't really finished tackling the privacy challenge that we face. That not all of us, whether it's in the government space, the NGO space, and everywhere in between, have grown as confident that we're really protecting the privacy of children, because technology can seem so overwhelming. And I think if we get confidence in that space, then getting natural outgrowth of that is AI. And so what you've probably seen if you're in the space around legal work at all is AI is kind of already everywhere. There's AI built into email, AI built into a lot of the tools that you might be using from Meta and it's different projects, Instagram, et cetera. A lot of systems are set up that AI is so embedded that in the US, where I am based, we've already started to change some laws. And there's some states that already have control over some changes to guide lawyers specifically about what to do about AI in Maryland, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Virginia, and new ones coming online all the time, in addition to, of course, the international law that Wendy outlined for us. And there's a lot of courts that are outlining rules about how to use AI. Children are already being denied access to courts in so many different ways. They can't walk into courts on their own to bring up human rights violations in many places. They're denied lawyers, or there's just not enough resources to give them access to the counsel that they need in order to access resources, in order to access their rights. So to keep them away from the resources that AI could bring them, if we figure out how to design this in a positive way, seems like we're just exacerbating a problem we've had for a long time. But the last point that I'll make is, because I have the glory of getting to sit between the commercial world and the public interest and public service and social justice world, is we got to remember that technologists think very differently from people in the justice space. Technologists are always inventing and always innovating. So the strategy for learning new things is to try and fail, and then to try again. That's learning if you're in Silicon Valley or in other parts of the world where they're thinking about innovating all the time. That's not how we do things in the law, and it certainly can't be how we do things with children. We can't afford to fail. So we have to figure out a way to learn and embrace this technology in a way that doesn't adopt this, well, we'll fail until we get it right, because children will be the victims of that, as they are online every day in the sexual exploitation space and many other spaces. We have to figure out a balance between our justice system folks saying, I'm fearing this change because of all the dangers, and embrace a little bit more how we can create tools that really do take on this, this technology in a positive way and build it without going all the way to we're going to try and fail and hurt people on the way.
Thank you very much, Angela. Thank you for that. I mean, it reminded me a conversation we had once during the project, the iAccess project, where exactly as you said, the artificial intelligence try, fail, and try again. The question is that, can we suppose that our kids are the guinea pigs of those machines, right? And do we want that? And I think in this group we know the answer, but it's clearly difficult, right? To balance between the speed and what we want to make sure that justice system become a little bit more, let's say, efficient or quicker, and at the same time the concept of fairness. And we all know that efficiency doesn't mean always fairness. Might means more sentence than alternative measure, for instance. No, and it reminded me this study from the ProPublica that found that the AI has used sorry, I do it again. AI sentence that has been produced by artificial intelligence was twice as likely to wrongly label Black defendant as high risk compared to white defendant. So we all know that there is in artificial intelligence some bias that are very difficult to contradict. And perhaps that brings me, to your point, Wendy, before, where you were trying to figure out where are the solution, but where are the risk. And then clearly there is two elements there. If I check my notes, where you were speaking about how AI can be used for the purpose to give access to the child to legal information, perhaps by producing information which is more accessible, and versus, let's say, the use of AI to deliver legal aid. So, yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about what are your thoughts on that dilemma?
Thanks so much, Cedric. Yes, I mean, I think that this is really the point, the pivot point in my thinking on AI for legal aid for children at the present time, given what we know about bias, about discrimination, about harms. I just think that there is in this really important work that we are all grappling with to try to harness the benefits of technology and safeguard against the risks. I think there's really a great need for us to be very specific in what we are talking about. So when we're talking about AI, there's a lot of questions that we have to ask, what model are we talking about? Is this an open source model? Is this proprietary protected? What precisely is the use case, the objective, the scope of the adoption? What are the models trained with? What data? Is this proprietary data? What are the questions around consent? Which was children's data used, which might raise concerns? But then, of course, are we going to apply models that are not trained on children's data to do, to speak to children in a child-sensitive way? So there's a whole load of, really complex specificities that we have to unpack with respect to the AI itself. Who owns the compute infrastructure? How transparent is that model? Can it really be evaluated? Can the harms be mitigated and redressed? So many things. But I don't really want to talk about that. I wanted to talk about the specificity of legal aid, because I think there's a lot for us to unpack there too. Access to legal information and allowing children to access this, whether it's online or using AI, so that children with disabilities can access that information. We can overcome linguistic barriers using AI. There's a whole host of ways in which AI can be used to furnish children with access to information about their rights. and about services they can access to avail themselves of specific legal advice. So I draw a really clear distinction between access to legal information for the purposes of, legal empowerment, and access to specific advice for children about a case that is relevant to them. The latter, for me, at this point, is off the table. I think that the risks are too great. I agree with Angela. It can't be the case that we are so intimidated by the really quite serious basket of risks that we're looking at with AI that we say, well, we're not going to have anything to do with technology. There is enormous scope for this technology to be mobilized for good, for creating equality, not just efficiency, but for creating equal access. But I would suggest that with respect to legal aid for children, we would start with access to legal information. And maybe I can also share another couple of ideas on that. One of the things that is occurring in the world that we all know about is, great machines of misinformation, disinformation for all sorts of malicious purposes. But the fabric of our societies is strained by this. It also means that the access to information is now compromised. When we are searching on the internet, we do not see all of the information that is on the internet. What we are seeing is very carefully curated flows of information that suit either the interests of malicious actors or commercial interests. I do think that one of the things that we are up against when we are wanting to say that AI can be used to provide children with access to information is to recognize where these lines of power lie in society that are actually shaping the information that we even have access to on the internet. But having said that, I think this is also, it's both a bit of a sad tale at the moment, the state of the information that we have access to, but it's also a massive opportunity to curate information flows that very safely empower children about their rights and provide them with access to services using all of the benefits of AI, but with none of those risks. At this point, for me, the provision of specific legal advice for children by bots is off the table. And rather, I think that along the lines of the iAccess project, where it's developed, with a child rights design from the very beginning, it's participatory, it's evaluated, it's as careful as it can be, and it's for the provision of legal information rather than tailored legal advice. I think that this is a project that is really worth investing in at this point, and seeing what we can learn and what we can refine from that kind of work. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Wendy. And I think you got to the point that, of course, there is extremely positive elements of using those new technologies, and then like access to legal information for children is always a difficulty for all of us to address to children, to ensure that they understand their right and they are empowered enough to use their right or to claim their right. And perhaps on that, Paolo, do you have perhaps some example from Brazil? I mean, you in your presentation, you explain how AI can be useful as well for children with a vulnerable situation, a vulnerable background, and those who have been victim of crime. Do you have perhaps some example?
An example of what exactly by AI as an instrument to help the children?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking about German sociologist Ferdinand Tonis. They teach that we have two situations: Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. And children try to, in this and Gemeinschaft, a child like to be in a whole thing, in a group. Then they use social medias and internet, games, video games, and so on. This type of use of internet and informatics can be supervised by programs, AI-based programs that we can help and monitoring and searching for criminals that use a try to, I don't know how to speak in English, try to put a mask like a child, but is a criminal individual.
Yeah, he's an adult, right? Yeah.
It's too nowadays they call voice like a kid. Hi, and I put on social media. Oh,
yeah.
My name is John. I am 6 years old, and so on. Nowadays we have some programs that can supervise this and immediately communicate to the police or social works. I had a trouble with kids in a orphanage. Yeah. That pedophiles try to get them to maintain sexual encounters, and then I use a specific program that get the communication, and I start a police investigation and catch the couple of pedophiles.
Yeah, no, we can see. Thank you, Paolo. We can see clearly that all the use of AI can support the police investigation, and above all, when the new technology of crime related to the exploitation of kids are becoming extremely complicated, then AI can be a solution to fight the fire using the fire. No, we'll say.
Sorry, at the same time, like Angela said, and when the balance is too hard to do.
And the balance is too hard. But that's the point, Angela. I think concerning the balance of the inconvenience of using those technology, but the advantage as well. And then coming back to the initial point of Wendy as well, where the question of legal support in terms of information, etc. So where is the lawyer? Where is the lawyer? Are lawyers going to disappear? We will have still lawyers in 50 years or not? Tell us the future.
Right. And I'm qualified to do that. No, lawyers aren't going anywhere. And the thoughtfulness that I think our community and other social justice communities are giving to this are going to ensure that, right? Tools are tools, and they're to be used by smart people, but that doesn't eliminate the human space on it at all. And I'll share one example. It's very focused on some unfortunate circumstances in the US, but we have a number of kids crossing the border that are coming into the US through our southern border, but are really coming from across the world all the time. And we have some, I mean, if anybody has trouble sleeping, you should read the Immigration Code of the United States, because it's so long and so vast and so many different paths and ways to tackle it that nobody could do it without legal assistance, of course. And there are some specific opportunities for young people to be able to access staying in the United States safely through different processes. And AI is not going to ever look at a young person and evaluate what its possibilities are, what their possibilities are, and start advocating in court. But we are seeing some great ways that it is supplementing the abilities of legal aid. And I just want to jump up and down on this again. It's been mentioned by all speakers. generative AI tools that are well crafted around helping lawyers and legal advocates, in some cases paralegals and other justice professionals, not just lawyers, assist. In this case, I'll talk about refugee children, are popping up and are really developing in exciting ways. In the Pacific Northwest of the United States right now, a local NGO, called LCYC, Legal Clinic for Youth and Children, is combining up with the team at Microsoft, and they're building a tool for AI to help for kids who get DACA, what we are shorthand for young people who've been in the United States and are now trying to formalize their ability to stay. And the DACA forms are, in the general sense of legal advocacy, not as complicated as filing a lawsuit, but they're not able to be done by a 12, 13, 14, or 17-year-old on their own. So you need access to lawyers. But those lawyers are using tools that are being generated by AI to be able to help them fill out those forms quickly while they're interviewing a young person, like we're here on this webinar right now, protected and safe in a private environment, so that as the young person talks, the information is automatically being generated into forms based on the learning that's been taught to the AI tool. And the difference is not that lawyers couldn't have done this on their own. As soon as the tool creates the first draft, lawyers then come in and do the second and third and correct drafts and really work with young people with the tool to be able to finish these applications. But time is relevant. And if they miss deadlines because they couldn't get access to a lawyer because there aren't enough of them, and we're talking about pro bono volunteers mostly doing this, they're going to miss their opportunities. 2, volunteers can do so many more because of these efficiencies. Doesn't mean they're stopping lawyering. They're still going to do all the reviews and the corrections and everything. Nothing generated by AI is ever going to be given to an administrative agency or a court. It's going to be generated and then transformed by the legal thinking of a person. But the quick and easy way that first draft is done, I've personally done this where something that would have taken my team 6 to 10 hours to do can be cut down into 2 hours. And then we do our next few hours of correcting that. And if that means more children not having to return to places where they're frightened and persecuted, the better. But the last piece I'll make on that, Cedric, is it's also what we do with the material. We know, because there are some beginning to be using some great AI tools to find images of child victims of sexual exploitation on the web. There's 32 billion images, and there's very few cases of prosecuting and stopping and removing those images. So all the tools in the world won't help you unless you keep the human factor in there, which is, what do we do with the benefits of these more efficient tools to see good things like the refugee advocacy for children, and to see terrible things like sexually exploitive images of kids on the web. It's up to us and the work we do afterwards.
Yeah, thank you very much, Angela. And it remind me some study about the fact that initially some artificial intelligence that have been trained to act as a perfect justice system were extremely harsh on crime, no? Very sentencing, going on detention directly, etc. Because by itself, the concept that the artificial intelligence was trained was only about the legal aspect and not about the human part of what is the purpose of justice system. And I think here we go. If artificial intelligence can reduce the number of hours of research for a lawyer, and he can spend more time with his client, with his customer, then perhaps we have something positive, right? So that will be some elements we need to keep focusing on and try to investigate in few months, or going so fast, so then perhaps in few weeks, to see how things are developing. I wanted to thank you all very much for giving us your time, your brain as well, your reflection around this very difficult topic, complex, full of promises, and at the same time, sometimes scary. We have to say it, and we hope that for the participants, you had access to a lot of interesting information. I see that my colleague had her email address on the chat. If you want to follow up with specific question, please do not hesitate to contact us. It was a pleasure to have discussion with all of you. Just before we stop, there will be a short poll at the end of this webinar where you can add some elements and perhaps some reflection about the next webinar. So thank you very much, all of you. I wish you a good evening or night, perhaps. Paolo, for you, it's late, I'm sure, there. And we keep in touch then. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.